These shelves that are in the background, we just picked up at a garage sale, place going out of business. So we got a great deal on them because we're going to need a lot of storage shelves for our new storage building, which is this way. This is our earthen structure. Has a rubble trench foundation, meaning it's got rubble in the foundation, old bricks, old urbanite, busted up toilets, anything that was suitable to put in the trench, finished off with a finer gravel on top before we started the Earthbag construction. Earthbags are a new way of building with Adobe. It is faster. I think a better way to build with Adobe, because you don't have to wait for bricks to dry, you don't have to transport them, you don't have to mortar. You're simply building as you go by filling bags. You can see the side of the bags still exposed. They're being covered with mud, which is basically dirt right out of the ground here, mixed with a little straw that acts like micro rebar, giving it a lot of strength for the chinking coats. And then the top coats are just the plain dirt. And if you were to feel it, you could tell it hardens just like concrete. The only drawback, of course, is if it gets wet, it'll start to run just like any mud. And again, it's just mud. We're near the completion of the inside. I just laid the plywood floor last night. It hasn't been screwed down yet, so it still moves a little bit, but it's solid. Under the floor is R13 conventional insulation, because the ground is a constant temperature and in the winter will act as a heat sink, drawing heat away from the building that you're trying to keep comfortable. Right now the building doesn't vary more than about 5 degrees day to night. And that's with a 30 to 40 degree temperature swing outside. The wall, just the mud from the ground mixed with water, plastered on and smoothed, some by hand, some I used a metal trowel. It's about 16 inches thick. The bags, after they're stacked, are about 14 inches thick, and the mud adds another inch to the inside and the outside in thickness. It's completely wired as we built, adhering to the New Mexico Adobe building codes, which say a direct bury cable needs to be run between bags in the center of the wall as you build. And that's what I've done here. So by the time I got the building completed, it was all wired and ready to go in that regard. Most of the materials, the door I built from scratch, the window I got at a flea market for $4. It was taken out of another house. A lot of recycled materials. The LED lights, I picked those up at an auction, and they actually are quite bright. Each bar is 6 watts, so we got 3 times 6 or 18 watts worth of lighting in here, which really light it up like downtown at night.
Okay.
So for work light or anything else. I put in 4-inch PVC tubes for future use for heating and or cooling of the building. At some point, there may be a thermosiphon hot air collector on the outside, which forces hot air in the top and draws the cold air in from the bottom in the wintertime. And in the summer, it's reversed. At night, the hot air will go out the top and draw in cool air at the bottom, cooling the building. Whereas this southern facing wall acts as a trombe wall or a great heat sink. During the winter time, almost the entire wall is seeing midday sun, heats up, and the flywheel effect or hysteresis of the wall is about 12 hours, meaning the heated wall won't be releasing heat on the inside until about 12 hours later, which is when you really want it. So during the coldest part of the day or night, the wall is at its warmest, and so is the building. Conversely, during the hot part of the day, the wall is at its coolest. So right now, I've had the room ventilating, but it's actually cool in here compared to outside. Ceiling is conventional drywall. Above it are some very conventional, what are called TJI I-beams, and then a pitched roof above that. The I-beams not only are very strong, but they allow you to put a lot of insulation. So I have in the ceiling blown-in insulation to the tune of about R50. It sounds like overkill, but I wanted this building to be very stable and be an experiment in building using simple techniques. You can build something fast, you can build it cheap, or you can build it good, but you can't have all three. You can have two of the three. We went with cheap, dirt out of the ground. We went with, what's the other? Edit.
That's all right.
We went with cheap, good. Adobe has been proven to be a good method of building. A bullet only penetrates a couple inches in these walls, so it's bulletproof, soundproof, weatherproof, earthquake-proof because of the rubble foundation, which has a little bit of resiliency. But it was not fast. From conception to where it is now, it took about a year. But during that period, we learned a lot. Our first attempt at building with earth and using the Earthbag technique, which using the onion bags with a mesh is now termed hyper Adobe by those in the business of developing and using this method of Adobe. And you really don't have to wait for the walls to dry because we laid maybe one course of bags in maybe a day or two, and by the time we got to put the next course on, that one was already dry.
Okay.
It's hard enough, you can't even drive a nail into it. I mean, the door jambs, I actually had to drill and put in screws that go into the Adobe about 4 or 5 inches without any cracking or anything on the Adobe.
People might be interested in how your ideas evolved about this now. Did you get some knowledge off the internet and then you built on that knowledge, or did you just kind of start from what the land gave you and then you went from there? What was your approach?
All three. We attended a solar fair in Albuquerque where we came across a book called Earthbag Building. We found even in a book on straw bale, which we had been leaning toward in the past, that there was a mention of building with earth bags, which went back almost 20 years. So it's not new, but it's been refined to the point where instead of building with the polypropylene bags, are now building with the mesh bags. And if you, let's see, above the window, because I didn't want to put in a large lintel and it's going to carry a lot of weight of bags, I just put in a couple straw bales. So it's kind of a hybrid where I combined earth bag with straw bale.
Well, you can really see it. You can really see the graphicness of how to bale, how all the fibers are kind of mudded together.
Right. We wanted to get the building inside done first, so the outside is just a rudimentary coat, first coat of mud plaster on it.
Okay.
The vertical OSB will eventually have stucco plaster mesh, like chicken wire, covering it. Then the entire wall will be mudded, similar to the inside. And because it will have to withstand weather, it will be stabilized. That's a term that comes from the Adobe builders. A lot of Adobe on the outside of the buildings is built with stabilized Adobe, which means it has lime, Portland cement, or other materials mixed in with the mud before you plaster it that will then resist the water when it dries.
Okay.